In recent years for indie games, it's become a lot more common to see developers try to play with and subvert expectations, whether it's through meta-commentary and fourth wall breaking, or something more subtle, like a twist on a classic trope or mechanic. It's not unusual to see new games try to challenge players' preconceptions. One of the first games I ever played that really grabbed me like this was Space Funeral, a freeware RPG Maker game by GameJolt user known as the Catamites. I don't remember exactly how I found this game. It was either from like a vinesauce stream or a list of weird indie games or something. But regardless, while it didn't hit me like other stuff at the time like Off or Yume Nikki, it really has stuck with me in its own way over the years.
Well, I figured now's as good a time as any to revisit it. So let's take a look at Space Funeral.
Right after booting it up, we get a really strange take on a typical RPG Maker menu. The 3 standard options are all renamed to just Blood, and the stock background music is redone with these really cold and hollow synth sounds. It's genuinely pretty unsettling. Like, everything's here, but it's all corrupted. Don't even get me started on this guy. Things only get stranger after you hit start. Instead of like an intro sequence or an explanation for what's happening, instead... The opening moments of Space Funeral are so special to me. And it might not seem like much, but just seeing this room and hearing those guitar chords always fucking gets me. Speaking of that guitar, let's talk about the music here. If there's anything from this game that I'll never forget, it's definitely this song, White Waking. It's got this very slow and somber feeling to it, but at the same time the melody is super fucking catchy. And I love all the psychedelic effects and hissing reverb too. It gives it this otherworldly vibe that totally fits the game. The visuals are crazy too. They're charmingly disturbing. About as charming as Doom and Gloom can be anyways. Everything looks super grotesque, but the colors are really easy on the eyes. I think it's in the way that the NES graphics limit the details. The simplistic sprites are kinda cute, but they also have enough there still to imply some really unsettling imagery. So what's this game about? Well, you take control as Philip, a sad boy in pajamas who perpetually sobs. It's not too hard to see why he'd be so upset. Pretty much everyone in the village, or village I guess, is an unhappy asshole. Hell, the only one expressing any sort of happiness is just laughing at your expense. Even your dad wants nothing to do with you. The first and only thing he does in the game is just tell you to leave. Not your mom though, she wants you to stay healthy. Anyways, you go and talk to your local wizard, as you do, and they explain the situation. The perfect city, a place from which everything is derived, has been corrupted, causing the world to be corrupted along with it. Your job is to travel there and fix it so that the world will be destroyed to its former glory. Once you head off, you soon get your first taste of the game's battle system. It's nothing extraordinary. This is RPG Maker 2003 after all, but it gets the job done. You can just brute force through it if you really want, but if you mix it up with some of the skills in the mystery attack, you can have a pretty fun time. At worst, they're non-intrusive, especially after you're joined by Leghorse, the game's only party member. Yes, he is a horse made out of severed legs, and he constantly hurls archaic insults at you throughout the game. I love it. My only real issue is that the constantly starting and stopping music can get grating in areas where you're going in and out of battles really quickly. It's pretty clear that these songs weren't made for this kind of thing. At the same time, though, that's something that I do love about this game, the choice in music. None of the music here is original, so instead we have a soundtrack comprised of already existing songs, and none of them are what you would expect in an RPG soundtrack. It's a really odd selection of tunes. Like, remember that song I mentioned earlier, White Waking? That's actually a song from a bootlegged live album by the 70s Japanese psych rock band Les Rally de Nude. Along with it is a crazy mix ranging from John T-30's organ music to early BBC stock tracks. It's chaotic as fuck and it clashes with itself a lot, but it works in the best way. The game pulls a lot of other stuff from other things as well. Like, sure, you already have the obscure vintage music, but there's also enemies that recite bits of Charles Baudelaire before the battle, and my personal favorite inclusion, Lucy from Peanuts, literally being the shopkeeper. It's not a homage or a parody. No, it's literally Lucy. That's the funniest shit in the world. There's definitely no shortage of humor in this game. It revels in its own absurdity a lot, drawing comedy out of the sheer ridiculousness of everything going on. It's not afraid to bend its own rules, so to speak, for that either, making jokes that are otherwise a little pedestrian feel really out there and hilarious in context. Like this bit where instead of the normal battle intro, you just get this. Like, That's such a cliched punchline when it comes to video game references, but it sticks out so much against the vibe of the rest of the game that it comes straight out of left field. Even if it can be fun to play through, though, the world of Space Funeral is a really terrible place to be. The game gets really dark and unsettling at points, like when you make it to the blood cavern and just...
When the low, heavy sky weighs like a lid on the spirit, aching for the light.
The first time I saw this as a kid, I straight up ran out of the room. I'm a fucking baby. Even when it's not focused on scaring the shit out of you, though, there's a constant underlying malaise to everything. This even shows up in the flavor text, with battles having half-hearted victory screens and rests that make you feel better, but not much. The whole thing is just so dreary. All the while, Philip trudges forward, crying to himself as he suffers through it all. He's mostly silent throughout the game, either by his own choice or because no one bothers to listen. There's only really one time we get a genuine look at his character, and it's during the game's silliest moment, no less. The conversation with Dracula.
So near the end of the game, you come across Dracula's mansion. There's not really a whole lot to do here other than talking to Dracula. And the results are...
I am Dracula. What do you do, Dracula? I like to drink the blood. Anything else? Well... What? Do you like to smoke weed? Yes! Very good! Yes!
I love this bit so much. It perfectly encapsulates everything that the game is about. Philip, the miserable little boy on the quest to save the world, taking a break to chat it up with fucking Count Dracula about pianos and weed. Also, real quick, something that I just noticed about the mansion that's really cool. The way it's designed builds up to the Dracula interaction. He's behind the first door that you see, but you're probably going to want to explore the whole room before you go in either of the doors, so you're going to go right. And when you see there's nothing there, by that point you're already closer to the second door, so you take that one. And then again, you're met with another pointless room. Finally, you come back to the first door, only to see what this mansion was really about the whole time. Every time I've watched somebody play through this game, they take this exact same path, and I think that's really interesting. It's not like you have to do it. Hell, the entire mansion is optional in the first place, but it subtly leads you along, building up to its punchline. I've been doing my best to avoid spoilers too much in this, but I'm going to be talking about the ending and shit here. If you haven't played this game, and I really recommend that you do, skip here. Okay, so after all that, you finally reach the City of Forms, the center of the world and the source of its corruption. There's not a whole lot here, but what is here is really interesting. The whole city looks like one big graphical glitch, almost giving me the same vibes as that one fucked up Pac-Man glitch that happens when you get too far. There's also this hallway full of the sprites of every character in the game, lifeless and as still as statues. Soon, you encounter the game's final boss, Moon, who finally sheds some light on what's been happening. From what I can gather, Moon was once an artist who traveled to the perfect city for inspiration, and upon seeing its perfection, realized that the whole world was just a pale imitation. In a frenzy, she decided to corrupt the city itself, turning the world into a cheap parody. The fight with her is about as easy as any other fight in the game. It's not super special or anything, but I mean, hey, her design is cool. Beating her causes the city to collapse in on itself, with Philip and Lighthorse narrowly escaping. And then you turn into stock RPG Maker assets. Yep. Honestly, even after all this time, I still haven't really gathered that much of a direct meaning from Space Funeral, and I'm okay with that. I think the game deals with abstract themes and emotions more than anything anyways. That being said, the ending honestly just leaves me confused for the most part, as cool as it is aesthetically. That's kind of the beauty in Space Funeral, though. It's unabashedly cryptic and leaves a lot up to interpretation rather than laying things out in any concrete, specific way. While I'm not as well versed in the Catamites' work as I'd like to be, that esotericism seems to be a reoccurring theme throughout, going off of stuff like this and Goblet Grotto. If you want more of this game, though, maybe try the fan games. Yeah, there's quite a few well-received and fan-made sequels for this game, all of which the creator considers a part of the official canon. That's cool as fuck.
Maybe I'll talk about those someday. That's gonna be it for this video, though. I don't really know how to end this, so, bye.